This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. This is a finance show for small business owners about money, how it works in our business and our personal lives, and how we can build wealth to be financially independent. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and today is episode number 17. Now remember, we're in a series about how to build a business to sell it. Today's episode is titled Duck. Yeah, you heard me, duck. Kind of like quack, quack, right? But I'm not talking about the quack, quack duck. I'm talking about duck. So let me lay this course for us. One day, as a kid, we must have been early teens, maybe late teens. My brother and I were driving our four-wheeler. It was actually my brother's four-wheeler, and we were driving it in South Georgia. And like most country boys, we were just having a good time, getting muddy, jumping ramps, and playing. And on this particular day, we had been out, and we had gotten all muddy and everything, and it wasn't uncommon after we go play on the four-wheeler, and it's just nasty and dirty and sweaty and stinky, we would drive the four-wheeler back to an old pond or old lake we swam in. And on this particular day, we made a plan to take a back trail, a trail we didn't drive very often, back to the lake, if you will. We're just going to go back and swim for a little bit, wash off all the salt mud off the four-wheeler, and then head home. Well, we were riding double head. Now, for you city folks, that means you had two people on the same four-wheeler, okay? We were riding double head, cruising through the woods, when all of a sudden my brother yells, "Duck!" And, of course, I was a little slow. I might have been thinking, where's the quack quack that's flying through the air, right? No, he yelled, "Duck!" And he moved, but I wasn't fast enough. And in the middle of the trail we were riding in, I guess a storm or whatever had kind of knocked over one of those Georgia pine trees, and there was a big limb that was just right height to catch us. And guess what? I didn't duck, and the limb and I became very intimate very quickly. I wrapped my entire body around that limb, and I fell to the ground. I mean, here I am, smack, hit this limb. I roll off the back of the four-wheeler, and yeah, it hurt. I'm laying on the ground. My brother, he's laughing, of course. I don't remember that for sure, but just knowing him. Anyways, we had made plans to go to the lake, get all washed up, go swim for a little bit, and I find myself laying horizontal on my back, looking at the blue sky and the Georgia pine trees, in pain. Now, luckily, I wasn't hurt, right? And we continued. We jumped on the four-wheeler, and we did go make it to the pond that day. But, man, I can still remember that. That tree knocked me off the four-wheeler. Have you ever made plans only to have them interrupted by life? Maybe it's personal plans. Maybe it's business plans. Maybe it's family plans. I have. Almost every day, if you live in a city somewhere, you drive around, there's going to be something in the road that's going to prevent you from going the way you want to go. So you have to make detours. You make plans. My mind goes back to Mike Tyson, the boxer. And I always thought it was funny. The day I heard him say this, I laughed. He said somebody was interviewing him, and I don't remember all the context. Perhaps you do. But he was dealing with somebody interviewing about the fight he was going to fight. He made the famous statement that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Yeah, we've dealt with that. I remember in the lawsuit that I was dealing with, we would make plans and all of a sudden we'd get punched and we'd have to adjust. Here's the thing about plans. They're never perfect. They're never perfect. About 2 years ago, my wife and I, we acted as general contractors, if you will, on our own house. And we had saved and we had purchased some land. And we found the house plans that we wanted. We wanted a farmhouse out in the country. And so we found the house plans. We hired a draftsman to make some adjustments to it. And like a good financial planner myself, right, I went through and I got 3 and 4 estimates on everything that we would need in the house, right? I mean, I had everything down to the light switches. I knew how much they would cost. I knew how much each plumbing fixture was going to cost. I knew how much the valves were. I mean, yeah, I had no life. And so I'd spend time at night and put together the estimates, right? And I had estimates from framers and HVAC guys and concrete guys. I knew how much block, and I'd have fluff money, and I had miscellaneous and everything in there. And so once I had all my estimates and I knew about where my price range should come in at, we broke ground. And everything started out great until about the second the backhoe put his bucket in the dirt, we hit rock and had to do a shelf system on the foundation versus just a fixed footer system that costs a little bit extra money. And every facet through this house planning project, our plans changed. We had an issue with our stairs because we put 9-foot ceilings in the house versus 8-foot ceilings. And so we had to adjust the stairways a little bit. Every little thing changed. Now, at the end, did we get a house? Yeah, we did. We have a beautiful house. It's an old country farmhouse. It looks like it was built 50 years ago with modern amenities. And it's only 2 years old. And we love the house. But we had to have plans. You know, in business, we all make plans. In fact, I devoted episode 2 of this series to planning a business to sell. The whole idea behind it was we need to plan how and where and when and why our business is going to move forward in the future. Yeah, we all make plans. We make plans about products within our business. We make plans about our employees, when to hire somebody, when to fire somebody. We make plans around almost every area of our business. You know, at this point in the progression of building the business to sell in this series here, you probably have an idea on how you'd like the process to go. Maybe you're at the point where you have the ideas and the dreams about when the business is going to sell, how much it needs to be as far as growth, you know, what the day-to-day business is going to look like. You probably have an idea. We've been talking about building a business to sell, and you say, you know, I'd like to try to sell this business in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. The best designed ideas or even plans never do us any good until we act. So today I want to talk about duck. You know, whenever my brother yelled at me that day, I didn't act. We had a plan to go to the lake, but I had to act. And because I didn't act according to the event or to the opportunity which presented itself, it affected my plans. Yeah, so much so that here I am on 39 years, some many, many decades later, and I can still remember that pine tree limb, right? I would have never made it, though, to the swimming hole unless I started moving in the direction. Unless we got on the four-wheeler, we've never gone to the swimming hole. You know, I wouldn't have a farmhouse today unless we started and acted on our plans. So I have some tip for you on thoughts on planning. And the reason why I revisit this is we're reaching the point in our series on now some things that we're going to have to begin planning for and implementing and taking action upon. There is a lot of education that goes into this process of building a business to sell, but ultimately we're going to have to work on acting upon our plans. So here's some tips and thoughts, just miscellaneous on planning. You know, you always start a plan with the goal in mind. You know, we wanted to go swimming. That was the goal. My wife and I wanted a farmhouse. That was the goal. So I ask you now, when do you want to exit your business? How much revenue do you need from your business at the time of disposition or when you sell it? Where does your personal life need to be? How much money do you need to have in the bank for you personally? What are you going to do after you sell the business? What are your goals? So before you can start this idea of planning an exit, you have to first know what you're planning an exit for, right? Second thing when we're talking about the thoughts on planning is you have to establish a timeline for your plans. You see, we wanted to go swimming that day. We didn't want to go to the water hole in 3 days. No. My wife and I wanted to build a house in less than 10 months. Have you ever been in the countryside around where I grew up and here in East Tennessee? I can go in various locations and see where people started building houses, but they never finished them. I know one location down the road from us. This house is probably 15 years old and it's still not finished. Now, I don't know the reason. I mean, that's not my prerogative, but you get the point. If you're planning to build a business sale in, let's say, 10 years, which is kind of my mindset, is I want to build a 10 and out plan. 10 years and I'm done, right? Or maybe it's 3 years. Maybe you've been in business now for 20, 30 years from now, and you're like, man, I want to retire tomorrow. Whatever your goal is, you have to establish a timeline. You know, tempus fugit is the old Latin word, which means time's flying. And man, it is fleeting. It seems like just yesterday, I can remember when you could buy gas for 47 cents a gallon. Just yesterday, my little girl, who's now a teenager, was born. And I remember the world changed. How about you? Just yesterday, it was Christmas. And here we are now, well into 2018. It's amazing how fast time flies. And unless we have a timeline for our plans, the plan is never going to reach, or it's going to reach, but it's not going to reach within our expectations. Yeah, we wanted a house built in less than 10 months. If we said less than 4 years, man, I would have lost motivation to get it done as quick, right? So the third thing we deal with in planning is we have to make a step-by-step agenda. We have to have an agenda. You need an outline of the items that need to take place for you to achieve your goals. So in my house, I knew that I had to put the footer in before I could put the roof on. That makes a lot of sense, right? I could not go in and establish sheetrock, or in our case, we used a lot of shiplap siding or shiplap raw wood in our house and some old farm barn boards. I couldn't install any of that until I had plumbing, electrical, insulation, HVAC. I had to have all those things in place first. The same thing applies whenever we're dealing with our business. If the goal ultimately is to sell the business, then we're going to have to put an agenda in place of some items that need to take place. There are some areas in order to build this business to sell that we're going to have to make sure we lay it first. My son, and I love telling this story. I told it in a speaking engagement that I was hired to speak at recently. My son got Chewbacca Legos for Christmas. I didn't even know Legos made Chewbacca Legos. Anyways, we get Chewbacca Legos, and we're making Chewbacca out of Legos for my 6-year-old son. He pulls the box out, and I'm looking at this. He's like, come on, Dad, let's build this Lego set. So, of course, like any red-blooded American does, I dump out all the Legos on the table and instantly start trying to put it all together, only to realize I have no clue what I'm doing, right? In order for me to accomplish the complete construction of Chewbacca in a Lego form, I had to get the instructions out, and he and I looked at point number 1, and we followed direction number 1, or box number 1 in the Lego set. If you've ever built Legos, you know they put a box number 1, they show you some pictures and show you how to put it together. Then we went to box number 2. Then we went and progressed all the way through the process, and at the end of that day, we had Chewbacca built in a Lego format. The same thing works in building the business to sell. You have to outline the steps needed in order for a qualified buyer to come in and actually write you a check. It's not just going to happen by circumstance or happenstance. It's not.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
So that leads me to number 4. Along this journey of where you're at now, you're going to have to choose a team. Choose a team who's going to help you implement the steps on the agenda within the time frame that you've outlined. See, whenever we built the house, I had to have a team of framers. I had to have electricians. I had to have plumbers, HVAC, installation guys, masons. I had to have trim carpenters, cabinets, countertop people. I had to have a lot of different people to coordinate the construction of the house. It's not any different, friends. As you're building this business to sell, you're going to have a team. No, I'm not talking about just your employees. No, I'm talking about a team of consultants here. And this team of consultants will work with you within your timeline and your agenda to build, if you will, that step number 1 box for you to accomplish to get to those Chewbacca Legos. That team of consultants is going to put together a timeline in order for you to accomplish your goals. And number 5 is probably the hardest one for the proprietor, and that is to make sure people are held accountable. You see, I had to have certain deadlines in place. In order for me to put the roof on, we put a black metal roof on our house. In order for me to put a black metal roof on our house, I had to have the right underlayment and the right roof sheeting in place. And so I had to have deadlines for those. We had deadlines with the bank that we had to meet as far as whenever we're doing some of the financing we were dealing with. Same's going to hold true with your team. You're going to have timelines. You're going to have agendas, but then you're also going to have to hold various parts of your team members accountable. If there's one profession, and this really isn't a slam, but if there's one profession of the team which has the tendency to drag things out, that's your legal profession. And that's only because the legal industry is built to where continuances is a common occurrence. But even in this process, you can hold your legal team accountable for a timeline. You can hold your accounting team accountable. You can hold your employees accountable within the timeline that you set forth. So you have your plans on what you're going to do to sell the business. And now you're on your way. The only way you're going to move is to start. Just like the house. I could have never had a finished house unless I dug the footers. Unless we started in the process. There's a couple of people that I want to deal with here. Perhaps you're that person who doesn't have a problem developing plans, but you have a problem of implementing or just getting started. You never really reach your goals until you start. Yeah, you're going to get punched in your mouth, metaphorically speaking, right? But you'll never know if you can reach your goal until you start. So if you're that person who wants to tweak and make sure the plan is perfect, look, friends, there is no perfect plan. It's not going to happen. Perhaps you're that person who starts and starts and starts and starts, but you never finish. Yeah, the agenda and the accountability is going to be paramount for you in your business. If you're that person who starts things consistently but never finish, this is where you need accountability partners. You need a coach who's going to come alongside you and say, hey, keep me moving forward. I want to reach this goal. Perhaps you're like me. My problem is not starting. My problem is not finishing. My problem is I come up with 1,001 different things that I can see at one time that needs to be done, and I have a hard time validating which step needs to take place first. So I have to align my team in place with people who can say, man, that's a great idea, Justin. Let's hold that. Let's put that out 2 months from now. We got to deal with the foundation first. I wanted to put the siding on the house the minute I saw the sticks up, right? Or the stick framing up, I should say. There's some other things that had to be done first. Primarily, we had to have inspections. But if you're like me, it's like, man, I'm impatient. Let's go. I'm the guy who would charge hell with a water pistol, right? I mean, that's just who I am. Maybe you're me. Well, this is where the process will help you. Now, I do have a word of caution for you. It is way, way too risky in business just to jump right into the fro without a plan. It's impossible many times. Yeah, there are some people who do it. There are some people who say, man, I got this great idea, and they go out and all of a sudden they create a multi-million-dollar business. That is the exception, not the rule. Friends, business is way too risky. We have to have a plan in place. See, the cool thing about planning and about implementation or acting upon the plan is that the plan provides us estimates. It provides us assumptions, a what-if scenario, if you will, for the future. It is only when we begin to act, we begin to take action and implement our plan, do we really start to see the results of our planning come to fruition. See, in the context of building a business to sell, there comes a time when we must begin planning the exit. There's a misnomer out there in the business world that we're going to build these great, exceptional businesses only to have that knight in shining armor come walking in one day in the future and offer us our dream purchase price, and we're going to walk away just instant millionaires. That's a fairy tale, friends. It's not the way it works. It's not uncommon as an exit planner and as a certified financial planner who works with business clients. It's not uncommon for prospective business clients to call and say, hey, I want to sell my business next year. Can you help me build an exit plan? And the answer is, yeah, I can, but you're probably not prepared for that exit and you're not going to get top value typically. See, the type of planning that we're dealing with in exit planning, you're going to start getting a lot more details going forward in this. The type of planning that we're dealing with takes years many times to prepare. If I had gone out and instantly started digging footers without having a set of blueprints for my house, then I would have never accomplished what I need to accomplish in building the finished product the way it turned out. It never would have happened. So exit planning will allow you to prepare for many things. And you say, well, Justin, when should I start exit planning? I'm only 2 years in my business. I'm only 3 years in my business. Go back to episode 2. My recommendation is to start planning to sell your business day one. One thing is certain, we will leave our business. It's going to happen. The business is either going to dissolve or we're going to die. One of two things. Or we're going to sell it or it's going to go away. It's something. We're leaving our business, right? So if I know that in my lifetime that I will not own this business sometime in my life, either because I'm dead or I've sold it or it's dissolved, one of the 3 or 4, there's all those different scenarios, then it makes sense for me to go ahead and start planning my exit day one. See, if we do that, if we start planning the exit of our business day one, then what we've in effect done is we prepared our business for the unexpected offer. Have you ever heard of someone who came in and they said, hey, I'll give you X number of dollars for your business? See, I've heard that happen. We hear it a lot in houses. Back in the housing boom, I heard people walk up and they knock on the door and say, hey, I'd pay you $2 million for your house today. That was back in the day because the house was a good neighborhood. It looked good. It was quality, et cetera, et cetera. Trust me, if you're building a business worth buying, not a business that's just providing you income. I'm talking about a business that somebody else wants to have. People are going to take note. But you need a plan and you need to start the plan as soon as possible. Don't be like so many business owners who pour their entire lives into their business until they're tired and then decide to sell. Oh yeah, like I said earlier, they want to sell their business next week only to find out their business is not worth as much as they thought, or they're not prepared financially for that, or their home front's a mess. And I could give you multiple reasons. Guys, the Exit Planning Institute's provided unbelievable resources. One of their stats from the Exit Planning Institute states that 80% of businesses which go on the market never sell. Let me re-say that again. 80% of businesses which go on the market to sell never sell. Guys, if we had that in the housing market, we would have catastrophic economic repercussions. But in the business world, it's almost like every day, 80% of the people who poured their life into their businesses and provided good benefit to employees and to the community, they just dissolve. They just never sell. Friends, you have a business plan. If you don't, let's develop a business plan. Number one, if you have a business plan and now you're in business, now's the time to start developing an exit plan. You need an exit plan that shows you the steps you need to accomplish to reach your specific goals. Now's the time to take action. Now's the time to prepare your company for that sell date. Go back to my riding on the four-wheeler, right? That limb is eventually going to be in the way of your business. I don't know what that limb, metaphorically speaking, is going to be. It's going to come. Maybe it's legal battles. Maybe it's competition. Maybe it's economic circumstances. Maybe it's internal issues. There's ultimately going to be a limb that's going to get in between your current plans and your ultimate goal. My advice to you is don't forget to duck. If you do, you may find yourself laying on your back looking up at the pine tree top saying, what in the world just happened? And guess what? If that happens, or if it's happened to you, it's happened to me before. If that's you and you just got knocked off the four-wheeler, get up, limp back over to the four-wheeler, listen to your brother laugh at you, suck up the pride, go down to the swimming hole and get wet and have a good time on a summer day. Business is no different, friends. We have to know our plans, right? We have to know our plans. And eventually, like Mike Tyson said, we're going to get punched in the face. It's a matter of what do we do after that. So going forward in this series, we're going to talk about the specifics that we're going to have in this exit planning process. We've been laying a lot of the foundations, and I'm looking forward to these next few episodes. We have many, many, many more topics coming about. That's it for this episode number 17. Don't forget to duck, right? Friends, life is hard. Business can be stressful. Business is fun. Money doesn't have to be stressful. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and make it a great day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.